Hi, welcome again. Sorry we cut out there really quick, but welcome to Facebook Live with Coldwell Banker Realty Group 1. And again, I'm Tara Claycamp. This is Travis Hecht and Bria Taddiken-Williams. And this week we are going to be discussing competing offers. It's something that happens somewhat frequently in our market. And so we thought we would just kind of talk a little bit about it and how the process works and go through some common questions that come up during those times. So I'm going to start. I don't know which one of you wants the first one.
Go ahead.
Bria.
I get it. Okay, here we go.
Okay. Pros and cons of a competing offer.
Ooh, I would say,
a good one.
Yeah, and this could actually apply to both buyers and sellers, okay? So being that I've worked the competing offer situation with sellers recently, I'm going to come at it from that perspective. So for a seller, competing offers, the pros of that, obviously you have a lot of interest in your house. So that's a good indication. However, and we'll touch on this more too, if you disclose that you have multiple offers, you may, have that bidding war ensue. So that could be a potential pro. But also I know when I've worked with buyers and they've been told, hey, there are other offers on the table, bring that best and final. Some of my buyers don't want to compete for a variety of reasons. So you may have two buyers sitting there and you say, bring your best and final, and both walk away from the table. So you went from having two offers to no offer. So that is one of those cons associated with being a seller and having multiple offers. Obviously, a pro could be you may be able to get the exact terms that you are hoping for. Also, it may help when it comes time for that appraisal from the bank because, hey, guess what? We had 2-3 offers for this house, and we know that what a seller is willing to sell for and what a buyer is willing to pay really helps determine that market value.
Yeah.
Want to add anything to that?
Oh, I'd say for a pro and a con for a buyer, the pro for the buyer is probably that there is an opportunity to negotiate and get a term even for yourself. Typically, if you have better financing terms than the other party, that ends up making your offer a little more attainable. Sellers usually like that. Of course, the con is a lot of people don't like to compete for anything in life, and when you're doing the biggest purchase of your life, because usually the house is your largest purchase, that can be a con because your buyers will look at it and go, let's just find a different house. I don't want to overpay, or I don't want to risk trying to overpay, so let's just move on from it. So
yeah. And another risk before we go to the next question, for buyers, you're presented with this situation, you say, yeah, let's do it, let's jump in, you bring your highest and best and all that, and then you've won the house. Now the buyer's remorse sets in, and you're going, oh no, we paid more than they asked, or we gave everything they wanted. So that is another con that we've seen with buyers, that buyer's remorse sets in.
Yeah, and it's a perfect way to segue into our next question: is it always about the money or the purchase price? That's you.
Usually for sellers, it's usually not. Money's nice, but a lot of my clients, it's not always about the money. It's about timing. It's about what type of financing, or if it's a cash offer, they want that reassurance that whatever they are doing with their transaction of their house, that they're guaranteed to get paid and be able to move on to that next house or get where they need to go. So, that's one of those things that I always talk to the sellers about. When you're looking at offers and you've got multiple offers, or you've got 2 or 3 that you're really going, okay, which is the best one? Always look at the terms. Price doesn't always mean you're getting the best deal. So.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Because closing date. Because lots of times, getting where you need to go on time is the big thing, and so closing dates can be a huge thing. And speaking back to the terms, that you talked about earlier. Which one is going to be the path of least resistance for both sides. So
yeah, especially if the house is vacant. We know that house is costing the seller money each month, or if they need to be somewhere in 40 days, they're going to probably want a 30-day close versus a 60-day close. So a lot of times we like to have those conversations with the other agents and figure out, what does that person need? What are their priorities in selling the home, or, what's a buyer's priority? So that way we can hopefully make it work for both parties.
Yeah. So it's kind of a good segue too when you mentioned about a vacant home to our next question. And it is, do you only get competing offers when a home first comes on the market?
No. That's kind of a short answer.
It's usually competing offers when they're my buyers. So for some reason,
are you the secret sauce?
Get the files out. We'll start throwing files for Travis.
Yeah, I guess for my most recent ones have actually one was a house that had been on the market 123 days, and one was a house that had been on the market 97 days. And of course, when you make the offer and then your buyer comes to you and says, "Well, is there really another offer?" and you say, well, yeah, there really is. And they say, well, I think they're lying to us. And I say, well, code of ethics with realtors, you can't do that. So if a realtor calls me and says, hey, we got a second offer in and, it's day 123, that's the luck of the draw. Sometimes it's because they've done a price reduction. We see that a lot, and the price reduction comes in and they hit the right sweet spot, and then it pops up as a new listing to a bunch of people, even though it's been on the market, and people go out and see it, and they all want it at the same time. So
yeah,
that value
exactly.
So we'll give this one back to you because Travis kind of stole your last one. But so talking about purchase price though, and how a seller can do a price reduction and it gets you to a new pool of buyers, and now all of a sudden you have competing offers. Do you have to offer full price?
Good question. You don't have to. Again, it goes back to what is important to the sellers and also you as a buyer. What's important to you? I know personally when we were looking at properties, we found out, there may be some competition. My husband and I already had a preconceived notion of what we were willing to pay for that house. And we find most buyers do. And so some buyers will give full price just to secure that house. But, here I feel like as, advisors to your real estate transaction, we're going to help make it as objective as possible, take that emotion out, help you determine what that price is. Also, we pull comps and whatnot. It may be, well, this house has everything that people want, but it may be priced $10,000 over what it could appraise for. So, you do not have to give full price in a competing offer situation. Like Travis said, he's had sellers who, the other terms were more important and they did not take, something that was full price.
Yeah. I think it's shocking how I think we all three can say that we've had offers that we've made that have been competing that, our buyers didn't offer the full price. You just never know. I always tell buyers, that, you just have to offer what, if you don't get the house, what you can go to sleep at night and know that you did the best that you could.
Yeah.
And so, all right, we're talking about terms a lot. So now this one's going to Travis Hecht.
Okay.
Can we know what the other buyers offered?
Usually you don't know what the other buyers offered. The only time I really run into that, as far as, selling agent, every once in a while, a selling agent may, their seller may say, well, let them know that the other offer is X type of loan. And are you willing to change from an FHA or a VA loan to a conventional loan, or can you qualify for that? That's usually the only time I've ever really been told what the other person's offer is. I think a couple times I've been told, in situations, it's coming down to the timing, and they don't necessarily tell you what the other offer is, but they're telling you, hey, if you can shrink your time down and get it down, maybe you ask for 60-day close and the other offer asks for 30. If you can get it down under 45, maybe they'll really take your offer. So I don't know in my 12 and a half years in real estate if I've ever had somebody call and say, hey, they offered, $5,000 more than you. Are you willing to go up $5,000? I don't think I've ever had that, but I have had terms discussed with other agents.
Yeah.
I know recently when we had that government shutdown back in January, I had sellers with a competing offer situation, and one was a conventional loan versus the VA government backed loan. And, we received that offer during the government shutdown. They hadn't announced yet how they were going to handle PCSs and whatnot. So it was like, well, if you can't, go to conventional, the conventional buyer is a little bit more secure in that situation. So, sometimes you kind of get a heads up as to what the priorities are, but they don't straight up disclose. So, yeah.
Okay, so speaking of disclosures, so does the seller have to disclose that there's multiple offers?
No, the sellers do not have to disclose. And that's, state law. The person who gets to make that decision is actually the seller themselves. That's something that we've had confusion on in the past years, but short answer, they don't have to disclose. I know there's been times buyers submit an offer and, like any buyer does, you want to try to protect your investment, not go, all the way to the top. And then you find out, oh, they selected a different offer. We didn't even know there was another offer. Just a few weeks ago, I had a seller. We literally had 2 offers come in within 60 minutes of one another. We weren't expecting it. And she saw one offer. It had exactly what she wanted. She said, I don't want to rock the boat. This is exactly what I want. So we went the other one. And unfortunately, the other buyer was a little bit taken off guard. They didn't realize there was a competing offer. But she, again, going back to a lot of what we talked about earlier, she liked that offer. She didn't want to disclose. She just chose the one and signed off on it.
And you've probably had that happen too, where, you just don't know because the seller doesn't want to. And I know I've been in that situation when I've had the seller too. And, just like you said, the terms were good enough. They were happy and those terms got them where they needed to go on time and they were ready to move down the road and get the process started.
The thing I noticed with the multiple offer situations, there's always risk for the seller. When you're negotiating with you choose to negotiate with one of the 2 parties, a lot of times what happens is you're taking that risk that you're going to get that deal together. There's always a chance that you don't get that deal together and you try to go back to the other party and they say, well, there was multiple offers. We're going to move on to another house because they don't want to get into that situation. So there's a lot of risk adverse people in the world, and that's something that we deal with on a daily basis. So that's the advantage of having a realtor professional to kind of talk you through the situation and help coach you.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so this is going to be a perfect question for Travis Hecht, as several of you guys probably know that athletics are big in his family. And so what happens if your buyers don't get their offer accepted?
Oh man, that's the competition. When the competition
how does sportsmanship apply to competing offers?
As a buyer, if you don't win, you need to be real gracious because there's always a chance that inspections could happen or financing could fall through or a buyer could lose their job and that house may come back on the market. So if that house comes back on the market and you've not handled it gracefully, say you went out on a blog or social media or Facebook or something and you said, hell, we tried to get this house and they took the other offer, they were being greedy. Well, sellers will find stuff on social media.
Amazing.
Sellers typically look at the names on contracts, and a lot of people they go out and they search and they want to know who's buying their house. Are they, what type of people are buying? Is it because you can find a lot out on social media, as you know. Go out and Google my name, you'll get 6 or 7 pages of stuff. So be careful what you put out there and what you say. If you really like the property and you didn't win it, let it be and let it play out because there's a chance they're going to come back because the deal may fall through. So that's always something that that we look at. So,
and on the flip side, kind of side note, as sellers, it's important to be gracious too, because like Travis said, inspections, financing, whatever. But one thing we also see too, when things start to get a little shaky with those buyers, sometimes sellers will say, hey, whatever happened to the other buyers that came up to the table? Well, a lot of times those buyers have moved on, either emotionally or they are under contract for another house, and so they're not necessarily still sitting there ready, waiting for their opportunity to get back into the game. But being a sportsman or, sportsmanship is key. Also, I was going to mention just kind of a funny anecdote we've seen with the social media. There is a buyer and a seller they had mutual friends and they didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And, one party was posting on social media, oh, hey, they have a second offer. That mutual friend was like, oh, hey, heard you're going back for a second showing. And then, oh, hey, they made an offer. Oh, hey, inspections are going well. And this mutual friend knew everything from both sides. Right. And so it made for an interesting transaction, but like Travis said, people Google each other. It's a small world, and there's a lot of mutual friends involved. So
definitely, it is amazing. So do you have to compete? Since we've been talking about, the topic is competing offers, but do you have to? If you find out that, there's another offer on the table and, you've been back to the house 3 times, do you have to?
No, frankly, you don't have to. For some buyers, it's a matter of they don't want to compete, or they really like the house, but, it may only be like a 9 out of 10 on their rating scale for them. So it's like, we just don't want to, get into that emotional state or go through that process. We'll just, let the other people, work it out, and they'll go find another property.
Yeah, I probably concur on that. I mean, I very rarely tell people use Coldwell Banker because we'll help you win that house, but we don't win 100% of them. So, I think in the last couple of weeks, we've probably seen more competing offers because I think houses are being priced better. The last 12 to 18 months, we've had a little bit of a cool down in the housing market in Manhattan. So people, they're listening to their professionals a little bit more, and they're using that formula. It's our marketing of the property and your price that you set. Because ultimately, as a seller, you're going to set the price. We're just going to give you the data, and we're going to say, here's what the market's doing. This is what we recommend. Here's a range, but ultimately, you're going to set that price. And whether or not you get a competing offer situation or not, a lot of it comes down to 2 things. One's location, and the other one's price. And so you can't move the house, because the house is where it's at, but price can be the variable that gets moved a lot. So.
And we see, if the house is priced well, it's in a good location, it has what people want. Those are the homes that we call the cream puffs, and those are the ones that people are attracted to and they jump on. I know a lot of times as listing agents, we'll hear sellers say, well, why won't they even bring me a low offer? Like just something, just a bone, give me a bone. Right. It's a small town. It's a small community. Yeah. Like we've mentioned before, if the buyer brings you a lowball offer, it doesn't work out, and then you do lower your price, or they come back again. Well, there they sit with mud on their face, potentially. It can be awkward. And so,
And I've always said too that since we have such a transient community, people come in for an afternoon, and that's the time that they have to find a home. And so, they find the one that's the best value in their mind, and that's the one that they offer on.
Yep.
And so, that's kind of another kind of piece of that price puzzle that you have to figure out.
Yeah, they don't have to worry about taking the time to work down the price or the terms. It's very straightforward.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so some tips that you two can think of for making the competing process less stressful. You talked about, the social media aspect, but
the first one's use Coldwell Banker Realty Group 1 because we're gonna make that process a lot easier. So utilize Coldwell Banker Realty Group 1. We've got the 18 full-time agents here, so definitely contact somebody in our office. Other than that, having an agent that's gonna give you the information to start out to make an informed decision. That's important. So, it's location, price, and really being informed and understanding the process. So, if you have a good realtor, somebody that's doing this full time and they know the market and they're in the know, they're going to really help you out. So that's probably my biggest takeaway for people looking, either buyers or sellers.
Here we take our role really seriously. We see ourselves as the advisors, not just what I would call a Pop-Tart agent. Oh, you want to see a house? Let's run over. I don't know you. I've never given you any information about this process. I know a lot of the agents here, when we start working with buyers, we have the buyers come in, we sit down with them, we make sure they get pre-approved if they haven't done so, because if you find yourself competing, you've got to be pre-approved if you want a leg to stand on. We also, once we get that pre-approval letter and the numbers from their lender, we sit down and go over those closing costs, because that is a term
Right.
on the offer, and that can be a big big piece of the puzzle for sellers. So we want buyers, sometimes I say, guys, I know it feels like we're starting out slow and you just want to go look at houses, and we will, but let's sit down, let's get everything squared away. So when we go look at homes and you find out you're competing, if you want to jump in, you know exactly what you can provide to the sellers. You're not saying, oh, hold on, I got to call my lender and figure out, am I still pre-approved? What are my numbers? And in the meantime, you've lost an opportunity because someone already decided during that time.
Yeah. I love the expression, to go fast, you have to start slow.
Yep.
So that way, you know exactly what you're going in, you're prepared. And just like you said, you know your numbers and you know what you can do. When does your lease expire? If you're renting, all those things that really, go into it and make a huge difference.
The one thing about doing that, what Bria's talking about, is if you go out there and you find that house that you really like, there's an old saying in real estate that if you sleep on it, you won't sleep in it. And what we mean by that is, if we're looking at houses at 5 o'clock at night and you have to go back and say, well, I got to call the lender in the morning. There's other things we have to do. There's a high likelihood you're going to miss out on that house. So we want you to be, prepared at the beginning, so that when we get to that point and you walk in and your spouse is like, honey, I want this house. and you can go, okay, Bria, write the offer. So we want to make sure that you're ready. And that's why we do that. So, that's just going to make the process easier. It's going to help with those hurdles of real estate that were talked about last week. So, that'll help in the whole process in the big scheme of things.
So, well, I can't see from here. I was going to check and see if we had any questions come in, but it looks like y'all are just kind of watching. Hopefully we've been entertaining nonetheless. So
for sure. And thank you guys that have tuned in. And again, we'll be back next Friday at 9:30 for another topic and round of Facebook Live. So thank you for joining us. And I think all three of us will definitely say go Cats. For tonight's big game. So thank you.
You're right.
Bye.